Good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Today's podcast is brought to you by Linda Martin Results. Talent Finders would like to welcome team coach, founder, and CEO of Linda Martin Results, Linda Martin. So, welcome, Linda.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Great to be with you today.
So, Linda, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you please share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started and what led you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So just a bit of background. I spent, Karen, over 20 years in the strategy field, believe it or not. And I was marketing a huge variety of products and services in all sorts of different industries, different countries, and with different companies. And, I had won a lot of awards for my work, and I knew in my heart that strategy was very, very important.
Yes.
I knew it was based on principles, some simple stuff that you would know, like stay in your lane, be differentiated, and of course, ensure that you're profitable. You're going to be out of business.
Yes.
But I started to become very aware of Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yes.
But I was playing in the 20% of the puzzle.
Yes.
That this is just the cost of entry. Of course, you have to have a strategy. But I became very aware that the strategy side was more of what I call the mechanical or the formulaic side.
Yes.
And I saw that there was something much bigger at play. And what this was is the psychology of people in the company. And what I mean by that is, what is it that they think? Like, how do they think? How emotionally involved are they in the company? Not just intellectually, but emotionally. And perhaps more important, how did they behave? Not just individually, but as a collective, as a team. And I began to see in the most successful companies in the world that this was the 80% of the puzzle. And so it was like, honestly, a big light bulb came off. I mean, it was a bit disappointing that I had spent so much time in the 20%, but it really drove a deep level of curiosity. And I just decided I'm going to learn everything I could about teams at work. What makes them thrive, right? How do the really great teams solve problems, right? And how do they create resiliency? Like, how do they bounce back? How do they come up with these great new solutions or innovations? And then I was also curious about what's required from the leaders in these companies to allow these teams to do this. So honestly, for 8 years now, I've just been basically doing an unofficial PhD in the field of teams. And I've been studying everything I can about them and the companies that become exceptional at allowing and creating teams to thrive in their own company.
That's amazing. So that obviously leads me to the current environment that we're in, which obviously, having been through COVID-19, which has turned our worlds upside down and inside out, it has also created so many business challenges, but also within this has also created many opportunities. So can you share with us how this has impacted you personally and professionally? And can you share with us how you've been able to adapt?
Yes, and I love your choice of words. It has literally turned our world upside down. I mean, I would say personally, I'm an extrovert.
Yes.
And in the beginning, it was hard. There's no doubt about it. I love the face-to-face energy of others. And as an extrovert, of course, you feed off that.
Yes.
But as this went on, I mean, I work and live in Toronto. We were the most locked down city in the world, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I really learned, wow, I mean, over time, I can adapt to literally anything, that I can make things work. So I literally said to myself one day, you know what, Linda, nothing stays the same. So what are you going to do to use this time to do things that you may never have a chance to do again?
Yeah.
So an example, I started interviewing some of the best team leaders around the world. And holy smokes, did I really deepen my learning. And one of the big outcomes of it is I'm putting a book out in the market. Keep my fingers crossed that it'll be out next year. So I guess I personally learned that, you know what, I can learn, adapt, move, thrive, regardless of the situation. Now, professionally, COVID impacted my work tremendously, and I'll tell you why. So most of my clients, Karen, are senior leaders, and they had to, unfortunately, deal more than ever with the basic psychology of people at work.
Yeah.
Now, whether it was their internal teams or their external teams, so this could be their customers, their suppliers,
Yeah.
they were just put under so much stress, so much change, complexity, but then underneath it, there was this kind of underbelly of monotony. So it was just this cocktail of mixed emotions.
Yes.
So my customers, they unfortunately had to manage their teams' personal lives, their own issues, the rapid change on the business. And they became really present to, first of all, massive complexity and change, and not only for themselves, but for others. And leaders had time to reflect, right? People on their
Yes.
team had time to reflect. And so I would say, as a collective, people started asking some of the hard questions like, what am I doing here? Like, is this what's broken about companies and what can we fix? And so professionally, it's impacted my work because I think leaders have really had the biggest awakening of their careers. And they've realized that, you know what, some of this stuff is fantastic, but there are parts that are broken. And how do we create a business through teams, thinking about how can we do things better together?
Yeah.
So that's been kind of the silver lining for me, I would say.
Yes. 100%. And I think it's actually exposed a lot of cracks that were already in the system, and it's just amplified them. And like you say, obviously now it's a time for change and, creating new opportunities to make it better. So that's amazing. So globally, we're seeing massive resignations. So what do you believe the reason for this is? Do you think that this has been a big wake-up call to corporate industries? And how do you think that this will change the future of business?
Great question. Yes, it is a tidal wave of change. But let me say this first, is that it really, to a certain extent, is a leak that has burst. And I
Yeah.
say that because I know a lot of people know this, but Gallup is one of the leading pollsters in the world. They've been asking the same question to employees literally in every single country around the world. And they're asking them, how engaged are you in your work? And you know what, Karen, the answer hasn't changed for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And the answer is only 15% of people are engaged. Now, in some countries, it's a bit higher, others, it's a bit lower. But overall, as a corporate workforce, this is a big problem that there has been really no change in for many, many years. So what COVID has done is given people, like I was saying earlier, a chance to realize, hey, you know what, things aren't really perfect. And it's given us, I think, a chance to have a bigger dialogue about it and perhaps, as you say, make some change. Specifically, what COVID has done is it has dramatically increased the rate of digitization. So I'll give you an example. Believe it or not, when I first started working, I was working virtually. We had this massive screen. We could dial up anyone in the world. This was back in the early 1990s, so 30 years ago. But what COVID did is it allowed everybody to have this experience of working virtually, working at home. And this caused light bulbs to go off for everyone. It was like, for the employee, they're sitting there thinking, hey, wait a minute, I've got a lot more opportunities now. In fact, I can work for another company outside of my geographical area. In fact, I can even work for myself now. So that is an absolute profound change. The horse is out of the barn, so to speak, and a lot of them don't want to go back in. So I think that's been a big change. I think thirdly, the pandemic, believe it or not, did not have an negative issue on productivity. In fact, it had the opposite.
Yes.
People experienced extreme burnout because there was no boundaries. So you're kind of working from morning to night, and it was just a great big blur. So that kind of caused people to go, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? And what do I really want? So this is where I think the big explosion has been for people to step back and ask some really important questions. What
Yes.
do we want from work? I mean, the reality is we spend 80 to 90% of our adult lives at work.
Mm.
And so employees are looking at that. And I dare say companies are looking at it as well. Like they have a much wider talent pool now. Right now,
Yes.
companies can pull, like a company in North America can pull from Europe, they can
Mm.
pull from Asia. So everything is kind of like blown up a little bit. Individuals have more opportunities as well. You
Yes,
can
absolutely.
different areas. In fact, many people are moving into entrepreneurialism as well. So I think both sides have had their eyes wide open. And I think it's a rallying call to be clear, both from an individual side, if you're going to work for a company, what is the type of company you want to work for? What do you want? And vice versa for the company. What are you trying to create here? How are you going to attract people? So it's honestly, it's a whole new frontier moving forward. I really, truly do believe that.
Yeah, and I think it's quite exciting in many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, change is always difficult, but I think
Yes.
you look back in history, yes, there are some downsides to change, but I think for the most part, as humanity, we make big leaps forward as well when changes like this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I want to focus now more on Linda Martin results. And obviously, it's enabling team development. So, can you expand upon this important field of management and the impact that it makes at work?
Mhm. So, first of all, I want to say that this field is very, very new, believe it or not. Now, I want
Yes.
to distinguish between team building. Now, that's the stuff all of us have done where you're doing scavenger hunts or,
Yeah.
you
Or obstacle courses.
well, we're going to try to build a team in a one-day event. I'm not talking about that, but that's
No.
what people hear when I say team development.
Yeah.
This new field, it's new in a couple ways. So right now, the biggest initiative is around executive development. And I call
Yes.
that individual development, individual coaching, get a coach. I mean, if I certainly had a coach in my senior roles and it helped me tremendously, but I'm not certain it really helped the team. I think it did indirectly, but not directly. I think it skilled me up.
Mm.
I wasn't really taught how to coach a team as a single unit, right? Versus a combination of individuals. So, this idea of coaching a team as one unit is very, very new.
Yes.
And team coaching, people go, well, why now? Well, the reason it's come into play now is, as you're saying with the pandemic, we live in a very complex, ever changing world that is experiencing extreme volatility. And that requires a very different approach to solve problems and create opportunities. This idea of an individual leader being the cheerleader is not working in today's volatile world. And leaders are now realizing, if I want to succeed at work, I have to be absolutely extraordinary at managing teams and
Yes.
teams, not just one, teams of teams, right? But here's the surprising fact is that 95% of companies say that this is not one of their strong suits. They're not giving themselves A++ on managing teams. They will on strategy, on individual leadership, but when it comes to teams, so team development is now becoming one of the top 3 strategic imperatives of fast growth companies.
Yes. And it's so critical, especially now with so much changing. So the work environment is changing so rapidly that this has created so much opportunity for you. So what do you believe you do differently within such a specialized and niche market? And can you give us some examples?
So to be a team coach requires an extreme amount of experience.
Yeah.
And I say that because when I'm asked to lead a team, whether it is a team of, say, key executives or C-suite or key managers, I really think that you need to have walked in their shoes to have their experience of leading fast growth businesses, turnaround businesses, right? And I think in my case, because I really am a curious cat and I've worked around the world, I've led dozens of teams, and I can't even tell you how many industries, over 50 by now,
Yeah.
and many countries as well, that I really do get it. But I'm not that business university professor type who is going to be teachy preachy. It
Yes.
hasn't actually never been there. I can honestly say I can experience your pain and difficulties, which I think is unique in the marketplace. I think the other thing too is, honestly, Karen, I am most interested in business results. If you don't have an extreme uptick in your business results, then I have not done my job, because I think the narrative now is about learning and new skills. But what I've learned is that doesn't necessarily mean you will apply them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we've become a bit addicted to intellectual knowing and not doing. And
Yeah.
I think my secret sauce, if you call it that, is I know how to get teams doing what they need to do, but they're not currently doing, and to have them see what they haven't seen before, the patterns, the habits that aren't necessarily serving themselves, the business, or their customers. So it's almost like a real widening of their lens so that they can see things differently, create differently, and produce an entire different level of results. You asked about an example. So I'll give you a current example of a company that I've worked with, their leadership team, and they wanted to go to the next level. And I was hired to co-create with them, well, what does this next level look like?
Yeah.
And how do I help them see what I call above the tree line, that there are bigger opportunities that actually require less effort? But what are they? How do you capture them? And I think the hardest thing in this is, how do you stop what you're doing now to reach for something higher, something bigger? So that's what we worked on for a period of half a year. And I'm very pleased to say, like, this team was capable of raising 9 figures in 4 months.
Wow.
I say, wow, okay, I can see now what we're doing, and I can see the opportunity, and I can now make that kind of fit between what we want, our behavior, and how we can change the business to take it to an entire new level.
Oh, that's incredible. That's amazing. So I want to talk specifically about team leadership and how is it unique and similar from leadership in general. This is a big part of what you focus on and what you believe needs to change to alter the current narrative. So can you give us some examples?
Yes, and it was a very well formulated question. Here is how I would differentiate between the two. Leadership is inspiring a group, so a collection of individuals brought together to achieve a business vision, their purpose, their mission. It's very macro. This is who we see ourselves as being. This is where we want to go. And I want to basically create a big picture that everyone in this group can see. That's what leadership is, right?
Yeah.
So park that for a bit and think team leadership. So if that's kind of the macro view, team leadership is the micro.
Yes.
It's very behaviorally based, relationship based. And it allows the team to, I'm going to say, create their own layer of cake, right? So they look at the great big picture and then they go, well, what am I supposed to do here in accounting to make this big picture happen? And so team leadership is allowing these teams to create their own layer in the cake for the manifestation of the company goal. And they're going to do this both individually and collectively. So this work allows the team to actually have their own purpose. And the reason why that's so important is I can sit and listen to this fantastic CEO, but if I can't make it livable kind of in my own backyard, I got to make it come to life for me every day with the little pot of people that I live with, right?
Yes.
Not like I see the big lofty goal, but I got to see how am I a part of it with my people in my backyard. And that's what team leadership is. And it is very different, I believe, than leadership in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say your biggest lessons have been within your career around teams?
Well,
I'm sure you probably had multiple.
Yeah, I think if I had to narrow it down to one thing, which is very, very difficult to do, is I think the biggest lesson has been with a team, it's understanding both the one-to-one need, the individual need, and the collective need. And you have to play to both of these to get a great team.
Yes.
So there is a fallacy out there that there is no I in team. And a lot of my purpose is cracking that because I do believe that there, of course, is an I in team.
Yes.
Right. And it's not about just being, team rah, 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 like the individual just kind of disappears into this collective. Nobody wants that. Right. But I think my biggest learning has been how do you take the wants, the strengths, the values of individuals and the team, and how do you dual process them? And this is a fantastic challenge, and it's also a lot of fun. Now, I was part of a team, and the reason I figured this out is the way that we, as a senior leadership team, there was a trifecta of leaders, and we managed geographical areas. So representing strategy and marketing, I was bolted to sales and finance.
Yes.
And I really saw the inner workings of a team because the way we were managed is we were given the collective right to make a geographical area thrive. And the management were really hands off. And they're like, we're going to put you guys together and see what you can do. We won top performing team almost every year. And I saw that it's about a collective, but it's also appreciating, respecting the needs, wants, and desires of each of us on this team. And Karen, we got so good at doing our team thing that if one of us was sick, believe it or not, we could go to one of these global meetings and we could talk as eloquently about, I could talk as eloquently about finance as the guy that ran finance. And
Wow.
did it. So what I'm saying is we really moved as one, but we have a deep level of respect and admiration for each of our own functional areas. So I guess what I'm saying is I was kind of thrown into it, and there was zero tolerance for not making this work because we're all recruited into one individual. So it couldn't be like, well, gosh, I'm having such a nightmare with, the sales head. It was like, I am not here to babysit. You guys go figure it out. And so we would kind of either deck it out in the back and figure out how we should make this work. And so I was given that gift of really being able to figure it out on the ground, running. And I am forever grateful for that.
It's amazing. Incredible story. So you've worked in multiple industries from pharmaceutical, oil and gas, real estate, and aerospace, just to mention a few. So do you believe that this has given you an edge over others in your industry from the US, Canada, Europe, and Latin America? And has this opened other doors? And can you give us any examples?
Yeah, so I think when you become that well-heeled in business, a lot of people grew up in one industry, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is every industry has its specific nuances. And I think when you get into all these different countries and all these different industries, what opens up for you is you begin to see the absolute truth of business people. And once you know that, it's transferable to any location, any business in the world. So you get to learn those deep commonalities, but you also start to learn that there are massive key differences. So I'll give you an example. There's a big difference between highly intellectual teams and highly executional teams. So when I manage a group of software engineers, very different than the way that we develop a team of hotel managers, right? What they think about is very different. Their job is very different. And so you know that right out of the gate before you even start an assignment. So I think that is one of the huge benefits in being worldly and having worked in multiple industries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also there's a lot of cultural differences as well, would you not say?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So when, the British, as an example, are very, very detailed. I mean, if I was to sit in a presentation, I could guarantee that they would have the longest presentation, like longest slide deck for sure. 100%. Then when you go to, say, a American team, it's just action, action, action. We're doing this, snap, 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 snap.
Yeah, and it's very point driven. They're not necessarily into the detail.
Absolutely.
It's like, who are you? What do you want? And how can we help? Boom.
Exactly. I've got 30 minutes. And if we're sitting here longer, I'm burning time, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And then Latin American teams, very, very different. Again, I mean, you better know how to do salsa dancing or you are not going to be able to be part of that team, right? And do tequila tasting. So each of them have their own nuance that really only comes from awareness and experience of being in different cultures. But again, like I was saying earlier, knowing those commonalities and then knowing differences, I think are really the magic when you start to work globally and in different industries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go back to teams, what is one of the fallacy or paradigm that has to change for leaders to be more effective?
Numero uno is leaders have to move from control, power, ego to, so that's where they've been, advisory, listening, and inspiration. And this is a massive shift in leadership style because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be told what to do. I mean, in some cases, yes, we want to know how do we do this and how are we going to succeed, but not on a daily basis. Who wants to be told what to do all day?
As we're currently experiencing in the current global narrative.
Absolutely. Stay home and wash your hands, just as a small example, right?
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I gotta laugh.
Yeah. No, good. And the reality is that we cannot lead like this anymore, even if you wanted to. The world is changing so quickly that a power control ego construct won't work, even if you clung to it with all your might. We need to be able to allow a broader group of people to innovate, to solve problems. But of course, people say to me, well, Linda, that sounds like you're just giving up the reins entirely. And my answer is no. What you're doing is you are advising. You're there not to tell, right?
Yeah.
You're there to advise. And what I mean by advising is, hey guys, have you thought about this? What about that? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will listen deeply to your thought process and listen deeply to what the needs of customers are. And my job is to really inspire you guys as a team to be really connected to each other, to your customers and any other stakeholders that you serve. And when you lead like that, oh my gosh, sit back and be ready to see, honestly, an explosion of results that you have never seen from the same team.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you have an impressive list of achievements from multiple awards and contributed to Forbes Council, to mention a few. What was the experience like for you? And did this open up other career opportunities? And if so, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah. And, I look at those, Karen, and to be honest, I'm very grateful for the companies that have entrusted me with some of their biggest challenges, and for folks like Forbes to allow my contribution in the field of teams that thrive. But I really feel honestly like I'm at the first step of the ladder in terms of what I really want to create professionally. I'm a very forward looking person, and yes, grateful for the partnerships I have had. And it's been an honor to work with them. But I think, like Steve Jobs said it best, when, you can never connect the dots moving forward, only looking in the rear view mirror,
Yes.
right? So I think really the best is yet to come for this movement that I am really trying to drive globally. And I think when you set a direction for your career and you move confidently in that direction, right? Experiences come to you and it expands your awareness and allows you to get closer to your goal. So I think you do attract some of these phenomenal companies and connections and partnerships that I've had. But I do truly believe that, once you get clear on what you want and focus yourself just on serving others, that, the best is yet to come for me or for anyone if they think that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in such a massive period of change with many leaders feeling lost and exhausted. The pressure of the team's mental health, family difficulties, to name a few. So what advice would you give to leaders who find themselves leading into the fog, so to speak?
Well, I think honestly, if leaders can create what I'm going to call self-leading teams,
Yeah.
their teams solve their own problems and create their opportunities. First of all, this is going to free you up as a leader. So the big change from where I sit right now is, the currency of the 20th century was education, like your grandparents and parents said, Linda, get an education. You'll never go wrong being educated. But I think the currency of the 21st century is now a bit different. And it is, of course, education. But in addition to that, it's about what I would say is learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Yes.
And I think collectively, including leaders, we have to unlearn some of the habits and behaviors that just aren't conducive to the extremely high level of change that we are required to manage.
Yes.
And therein lies the difficulty is it's not the learning, Karen, but it's the unlearning. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
I love alpine skiing. And I really learned I can't get any better unless I unlearn all the habits that are keeping me stuck in a certain way
Absolutely.
of skiing. And so I need coaching. My ski coach like skis beside me and it's like, remember, it's weight transfer, right? Or whatever she's screaming at me. And so she's always helping me unlearn that habit, because if you can, you're going to be able to ski more effective, ski faster, ski down bigger cliffs, right? So I guess it's always in the unlearning, not the learning per se. So that would be my message to leaders, to become really great about getting out of that fog, is help teams self-lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me to the two final questions. What are the three key pieces of advice you would give to companies looking to be really good at managing teams? And what legacy would you like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered? Because some people don't like the word legacies. How would you like to be remembered?
So first question, yeah. So three key pieces of advice if you want to get really, really good at teams. Number one, your job as a leader is to make sure that your purpose, the business reason, your why, whatever you want to call it, is simple and emotive. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Princess Margaret Hospital is a leading cancer center in the world. So have a listen to this. Their purpose is so simple and so emotive. We will conquer cancer in our lifetime. Now,
Yes.
who doesn't want to be a part of that, right?
Yeah.
But I'll give you another one, because that's, people say, well, that's them. They can do that. What about me? What if I'm doing something more simple, like running a hotel? So I'll pick Four Seasons as another example. Their purpose is simple. We are a group of ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And if you want to attract people that believe in what you believe in, you have got to nail this. Simple and emotive, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why this is so important is that emotive language or engagement leads to productivity. It unleashes kind of their heart and their soul to be like, I want to be with this organization, and I'm going to give everything of that because I want to go where you guys are going. Right?
Yes.
You can put in the language, I want to go where you're going. This isn't just, I'm not just going with you, kind of being pulled along. I decided I want to give what I've got because I want to go where you go. So that's note number one. Number two, switch your mindset. Don't ever use the word managing people.
Oh yeah, that's awful.
Managing people sounds like I am managing, like pushing down people.
Yeah, or trying to teach people how to think. I hate that line as well.
Like, create an environment that brings out the absolute best in your team and allow them to co-create the future. Nobody wants to be managed. Like I was saying earlier, nobody wants to be told what to do.
No.
And number three, be really good at inspiring both the individual and the collective piece of teams. So it's not just team, team, team. Yes, it is one unit, but what sits underneath it is what the individual wants. Practical advice. Make sure you know what people on your team want. And I don't care if they tell me, Linda, guess what I really want? I want a bigger and better house. I'm like, that's awesome. My job is to ensure that you get that. It doesn't have to be, I want to be in your seat, right? That, or, I need to get to, X level in your company. People aren't like that anymore. They have their own desires of what they want to get. And my job as team leader is to go, thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get what you want. And I want you to co-create what we're doing here. And if we put these two together, it'll work, because I am only ever going to get what I want by giving others what they want. That's business 101. So that would be my third piece of advice, is just be really good at inspiring the individual and collective piece of teams.
That's amazing. I love it. So the final question is, how would you like to be remembered, or what legacy would you like to leave?
Well, I'm dedicating my entire life, Karen, to work teams. And if I can make a dent globally in allowing teams to produce the highest value outcomes while inspiring a truly rewarding experience on that team, my work will be done. Like, it's not enough just to say, I think the old vernacular is the high producing teams or highly productive teams or high performing teams, but we've all been on them, and experience on them, quite honestly, can be exhausting. So what I'm trying to do is say, how do we create high value outcomes where people loved being on this team and they weren't necessarily gave up their entire life for it, exhausted, had problems at work, went through a divorce, because it was all team, right? How do we do both? So it's not, or I'm living into the and world. We can have teams that produce high value outcomes and have a truly rewarding experience. And that's my goal. That's what I'm working on. And my goodness, if I can do that, I will be one happy lady.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. So if people would like to connect with you, Linda, what are the best platforms to do so?
So I would say the website, lindamartinresults.com. I would also please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I am under Linda Martin, Toronto. Unfortunately, Karen, I have a name that there's 70 of us in Canada as well.
So you have to be very specific.
Absolutely. Just put Linda Martin Toronto and you will find me. And I love to connect with leaders around the world. It would be an honor and pleasure to have a conversation, perhaps of what some of the challenges you're having. I can certainly share insights with you as well of things that I have learned along the way.
Well, that's amazing, Linda. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure we're going to have you back to discuss other aspects around your business and to be able to help other people. So thank you so very much.
No, thank you. Really, really enjoyed our time together.